Yo, what's good with y'all, man? My name is Tej, and in this video, I'm going to show y'all how to make a dark analog sounding sample similar to WHEEZY, Q-Beats, and some of those other types of vibes for like Future, Travis Scott, and Lil Baby. And this video is going to be a little shorter because I'm only just going to be breaking down the sample, so I'm going to be going into more depth into the actual sample itself. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy these types of videos, be sure to hit subscribe. And if you want to know the latest on what I'm working on, be sure to follow me on Instagram. And with all that being said, let's just jump right into the sample. So this is what my sample sounds like before I added the bass to it and changed the pitch around. So the tempo that I chose for this one was 161 beats per minute. Overall, I'd say this total sample is pretty simple despite it looking kind of all over the place with all the audio clips and all that. Once I kind of break it down step by step, it'll make a little more sense. So for my first melody sound, I opened up Keyscape and I got this grand piano preset. For this sample, I kept the bass pattern really simple. So it's just the typical kind of like dark or 4PF bass note pattern. So the key that I ended up choosing was D sharp minor. So the root note, of course, is going to be D sharp. And then moving that down 4 half steps down to the 6th note in the scale, which is B. So like I said, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And after I put in my bass piano notes, I opened up Analog Lab and I went to the Echoes Bank by Prod by Hayes or HCE. And I got this Evolving Keys static preset. And all I did with this was I was just trying to put in a catchy top melody to what we already had with the bass piano. So looking a little closer into the music theory behind this, I'm only really using about 4 notes from the scale. So I have the root note D, the 2nd note F, 3rd F sharp, the 5th note in A sharp, and also the 6th note in B, but that's only played once. I'm only really using 1, 2, 3, and 5. Originally, I played this in piano, and then I just copied it into this analog preset just so I could get a little closer to the dark analog vibe I was really trying to go for. So as is, it sounds kind of flat, but I ended up going into the mixer track here and I went into Portal and I got the Nanobots preset from the Grain Synthesis Portal Bank. I think these are pretty close to the standard settings. I just adjusted this dry wet knob so that the dry is pretty close to, I think, about like 10 or 15%. So with the Portal on it, this is what the keys now sound like. It's a pretty subtle effect, but it ends up meshing pretty nicely with all the other accents and textures that I add later in the sample. So once I had that, I just popped my pattern clip into the playlist, and this is where I ended up adding a boatload of different accents and changing up sounds and all that. And this is where I think a little bit of the creativity comes in. I think all of these accents are from a free producer grind one-shot kit or something like that. I believe it's one of the more recent ones they released. So starting off with my first accent or texture that I added. So originally this is what the accent sounded like. And this is the process that I took to fit it with the key and tempo that I already had. So it's marked here that it's 85 beats per minute in the key of B minor. Since we're doing this at a faster tempo, I just multiplied 85 by 2, which is 170. So what I did is I went up to the project tempo here. I right clicked on it and I hit copy value, so it's just easier to go back to 161. That way I don't have to scroll and find it every time I'm changing because each of these accents have different tempos. So I multiplied 85 by 2 to get 170, and then I changed the project tempo to that, and then I went back into the sample here. I double clicked on it and I changed the mode from resample to stretch. That way the sample stays the same length and it'll be in the correct tempo. And then since the key is in B minor, the key that the MIDI is in is D sharp minor, we can just count it up the scales. So I just used the pitch knob and I just went up from B to C minor, C sharp, D, D sharp. So that ended up going up by 400 cents or 4 half steps. So now the accent is in the correct key. And once I had that, I duplicated the sound and I clicked on the top left here and I hit make unique as sample. And once I did that, I basically did the same thing, but I just pitched it down an octave. So in the original clip, it was up by 400 cents. And since I wanted to put it down by 1 octave, I went to minus 800 cents. So in order to get your octave down sound, you just put it down by 1200 cents. So putting both those accents together with what we have so far, this is what it sounds like. So for my next accent, the original one sounded something like this. So going to the accent again, it says it's 140 in A minor. I'm just going to use the same technique as I did last time. So I'm just going to go to the tempo, move that down to 140, and then double click on the audio clip and change the mode from resample to stretch. And then just using the same method of counting up or down from the key that the sample is in. This is an A minor. I'm just going to count this down to D sharp minor. So we go A, G sharp, G, and so on until we eventually get to D sharp, which is negative 600 cents. And similar to the last one, I copied the clip over and then hit make unique as sample. And then once I did that, all I did was just move it up by 1 octave. So like I said, just adding 1200 to what we already have. So since it was negative 600, we're shifting this to plus 600. In context with everything that we have so far, this is what it sounds like. So going into the last accent, this is what it originally sounds like. Once again, I'm just going to employ that same strategy that we used for the first two accents. So with this one, it's in 144 beats per minute. So we're just going to go up to the tempo here and scoot it down to 144. Once again, double click on it, change it to stretch, and then shift the pitch accordingly. So this is an F sharp minor, so I'm going to move it down by 300 half steps to negative 300 to get D sharp minor. Since the other two accents were kind of ringing out already, I didn't want this third one to do that. I wanted this to be a little bit more repetitive. I just cut it so that I have the first 2 measures and duplicated this for the full 8 measures. So once I had that, this is where we have everything except for the sub bass. So now going into the second arrangement, all I did was just render each of these out as audio clips. So in the mixer tracks, once I had each of those sounds leveled out, I just highlighted these dots right here and then hit Alt and R on my keyboard and brought this menu up, and then I just switched this mode to pattern and then just hit start. So once I did that, I had all of my audio clips, and the only thing that I changed is I think I switched around the second accent so that the higher octave hits first and then the lower octave, but otherwise everything else is the same. And then for my last sound, I went into Omnisphere and I got the Growler Moog bass preset. And I pretty much just copied the same bass notes that I had for the piano at the beginning, except I just put in the C sharp or the 7th note in the D sharp minor scale just to kind of lead it back into the beginning of the sample. So once I had that done, I arranged the entire loop using all the stems and then left all the stems out at the end, and I rendered out the entire track. So how I ended up doing that is I just went to the master here and then I selected the same part of the mixer that I did when I rendered out each of the individual stems, and then did the same thing, just hit Alt R on my keyboard, except this time I had the mode on full song and then rendered it out. Changed the mode to stretch and just pitch it up by 100 cents. So the final sample is in the key of E minor. And once I had that, all I did was just render it out, and that's how I got my final loop. So that's going to conclude it for this one. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it pretty helpful. As always, leave a like if you did enjoy it, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Let me know any feedback or anything else in the comments, and that's going to do it for me. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.